Hey government students, this is Mr. Vanderzee, and today we're going to be going over the committee system. So the committee system I've mentioned a couple times in class is an important part of Congress because Congress members spend so much time in committee. They don't as often spend time in the full chamber like we might think. They rather are in smaller rooms, in smaller meetings, talking about important issues of governing. So that's what we're going to be getting into today. The committee system exists. It's not always been there, but it's necessary today. Why? Here's a couple reasons. First off, in a 2-year term, more than 25,000 bills may be introduced in Congress. As many as 700 bills will eventually pass both houses. So there's a lot of bills, and that's part of it. Number two, then, is that Congress can't handle the workload as a single body. It would just be impossible. That many bills, they can't possibly deal with them all and do them justice as a single body. They have to break it up. So they cope by dividing the work up among committees that specialize in various topics, subjects, or areas, like several little legislatures within the legislature. Thus, after a bill is first introduced in the House or Senate, it is next assigned to a committee for study. What does the committee do? Well, they study the proposed legislation, the bill. They divide them up. So these bills go to this committee, these bills go to this committee, these bills go to this committee, and they divide it all up. And now, in one committee, they study it. Okay, and there are a couple options they have. They can pass it. Okay, they can pass it, and it will go back to the chamber for a vote, go back to floor action. They can also propose alternatives. So if they don't like it, they can say, well, this bill deals with this matter that is important, but we don't like the solution they come to. So let's come up with a different solution. And they might propose an alternative bill. They could amend it. They could just make some changes, say, well, we mostly like this, but there are some changes that would be needed here. And then the last one, they can kill it. They can just say, nope, this is no good. This is never going to pass, or we don't like this, or we just don't have time for this right now. All right. So the key here is that the committee system weeds out the bills. Most of them die in committee. All right. That's the most common place for a bill to die. Number two, only after the committee passes it can a bill be voted on by the full House or Senate. So if they kill it, it can't be pulled out for further action except by a discharge petition, which you read about in the book. Excuse me. Number three, committees also conduct investigations. All right, so we talked about that as one of the purposes of Congress. Now let's talk about the types of committees. So these are not specific committees. These are specific types of committees. So, firstly, we have party caucuses. All right, and these are meetings of the parties. All right, so you have the Republican caucus, you have the Democratic caucus. So these are pretty big committees because, well, it's all the Republicans and all the Democrats. Excuse me. They develop party strategy and schedule legislation. They assign party members to legislative committees, so they might decide, you're going to go to the Foreign Affairs Committee, you're going to go to the Finance Committee, etc. Number two, standing committees. These are permanent committees specializing in different types of legislation. There are 22 in the House, 16 in the Senate. All right, so they have, the key here is they're permanent. And those two I mentioned, actually, the Foreign Affairs Committee, the Finance Committee, these are examples of standing committees. They're always there, almost always. They've been there for years, and they will continue to be there for years. And most of the powerful committees are standing committees. And then there are, within that, subcommittees. So yeah, pretty crazy. There are lots. Lots of meetings if you're a member of Congress. Number three, a select or a special committee. These are established for a special purpose and a limited period of time, so they're not permanent. An example would be the Senate Watergate Committee, called to conduct hearings in 1973. If you remember that was the committee that was investigating, what did President Nixon know and when did he know it, and trying to figure out if something improper had happened. Number 4, Joint Committee. These are committees, a committee composed of members from both houses acting as a single body, which is primarily investigative in nature. So it's joint because it's both houses of Congress, Senate, members of the Senate, and members of the House getting together. All right. And these are investigative. They study, report their findings, and make recommendations for public policy. They do not deal directly with bills or proposed legislation. An example would be the Warren Commission that was investigating the JFK assassination. All right. So that's an example of a joint committee. Number 5, Conference Committee. These are very important. When House and Senate pass different versions of a bill, which it happens a lot actually, they must come to some agreement. Conference committees, composed of members from both houses, must work out the differences. The bill cannot be sent to the President until the House and Senate have agreed upon just one version. And a large percentage of bills pass through conference committees because you get one bill that makes its way through the House, and then after it passes the House, it goes over to the other side of Capitol Hill to the Senate, and now they have to deal with it. And they might find that, well, we don't like this part of it, we don't like this part of it, and they change things, and now you have 2 different versions of the same bill. So, conference committee, they get together, and they reconcile those differences in a way that they can then go back to the houses to be approved. And they can have one version of a bill. All right, you can't have 2 different versions. The president can't sign 2 different versions of the same bill. He signs one bill that is the same from both houses. On the back now, committee assignments. So, if you were to be a member of Congress, how would you figure out what committees you would serve on? Well, the average House member, first of all, serves on 6 committees and subcommittees. All right, the average senator serves on 11 or more, because you've got to remember. How many senators are there? This is important. It's going to be on the test. In the Senate, there's 100 senators. All right. In the House, how many members are there? If you guessed 435, you are correct. Those are important numbers. Make sure you know them. So it makes sense that senators would serve on more committees because there's less of them. All right. So that's one note. The other thing is the majority party chooses them. Okay? So the majority party will choose from among, right now it's the Republicans in control of the House and the Senate. They're going to choose the chair people of all the committees from their party, obviously. Okay? So the heads of all the committees are going to be Republicans at this time. Number 3, the majority party always has a majority of members in each standing committee. All right? So in addition, Republicans have more members on each committee. And number 4, chairpersons are very powerful because they decide which bills are considered. They select chairpersons for subcommittees. They are appointed to conference committees. Remember from the other side, we talked about that. They hire staff and dictate what the staff do. They decide which witnesses to call forth to testify for or against a bill. And I would say especially this one is very important, deciding which bills are considered. They can say, no, we're not going to consider this bill right now. And then what will happen? They've killed it, right? It'll die. All right. Next, the majority party even holds the majority of seats in each subcommittee. So having the majority, which the Republicans have right now, is a pretty big deal in Congress. Letter E, the powerful committees. Certain committees are more powerful because, well, one reason they can be powerful is money. So these are things that make committees powerful. Money is one. If they deal with finances and a lot of money, that's power. Letter B, do they have a national or global impact? If they do, they're more likely to be powerful. So just kind of having an impact on the world. Letter C, power in the legislative process. All right, power in the legislative process is another thing that can make a committee powerful. In other words, the lawmaking process. Do they have a loud voice in what gets determined? An example would be this, deciding which bills are considered. That's power in the legislative process. We're not going to talk about this bill. We're going to move on, right? So that's an example. In the Senate, here are some specific now powerful committees. And then we'll cover some from the House as well. So in the Senate, the Appropriations Committee is, excuse me, the Appropriations Committee is a very powerful one. It deals with spending. Appropriations means spending. So that's one. Number two, another one is foreign relations. All right, the Foreign Relations Committee is also a very powerful one. Finance is another one, the Senate Finance Committee. The Senate Armed Services Committee is another powerful one. And number two, or I'm sorry, in the House now, number one, rules, the House Rules Committee. When a bill hits the floor, it covers the rules of debate. So this is a very powerful one for deciding power in the legislative process, right? Number two, Ways and Means. All right, this committee deals with taxes. All right, so it's only in the House that they deal with tax policy. Number three, appropriations. We already covered that above, though, spending. Some committees are in both parts, all right? They have their own appropriations committee, and they have their own appropriations committee. Number four, foreign affairs. All right, and that is important because foreign affairs, and that is important because it has a big national and global impact, especially that global impact there with foreign affairs, right? So now let's go through and let's get the rest of them. So we're going to write one of three things, either money, impact, national or global impact, or we'll just write leg for power in legislative process. Or maybe we'll write legislative power, okay? So for each one, let's try to do that. Appropriations, spending. Which one of these makes that committee powerful? If you thought money, you are correct. Foreign relations, which one of these makes that committee powerful? If you said national or global impact, you are correct. Number three, the Finance Committee. If you said money, you are correct. And number four, Armed Services. If you said national or global impact, you are correct. Number one in the House now, the House Rules Committee. Legislative power. This is very important for the House Rules Committee. It makes it very powerful. Okay. Number two, and again, that means power in the lawmaking process. All right, when a bill hits the floor, the rules of debate once it does hit the floor, etc. Number two, the Ways and Means Committee, taxes. Which one of these does that deal with? If you said money, you are correct. The Appropriations Committee, we kind of already covered that one above. It's also money. And then Foreign Affairs, national or global impact. All right, so just to review now. Here's the reasons why the committee system is important and why it's necessary in Congress. Here's some options for what a committee can do. Then we had part C, the specific types of committees, not I shouldn't say specific. These are not actual committees. These are types of committees. And so these right here are specific committees. And all of these, by the way, happen to be standing committees. Okay, all of those powerful committees happen to be standing committees. All right. Some might have more power temporarily, but these have a lot of power throughout the years. All right. So those are some of the basics for the committee system in Congress. Again, Congress does not spend as much time as we might think in the full chamber. Sure, they spend a lot of time there too, but they spend a lot of their time in individual committees, in meeting rooms, considering bills, and kind of it's that process again of weeding out the many bills that make their way through Congress on their path to possibly become a law. Thanks for joining me, everybody. Hope you have a good day.